Hello and welcome once again to my underground lair. Last time we talked about the Anaconda Plan, and we also talked about why the war didn't last, or rather, why the war um, wasn't over quickly. And this right here is a very good illustration of the Anaconda Plan. You see all these ships here marking the Union blockade. Now, it took a year or so for them to set that up, but once they got it there, they made it virtually impossible for any foreign ships to land in the Confederacy or for any Confederate ships to leave. And the Confederates didn't have much of a navy to speak of, so they couldn't challenge the Union blockade. And remember, the Anaconda Plan called for three attacks, three prongs. You have the attack through Virginia, which is aimed at taking Richmond, which is right over here. You've got the Union blockade here, and then you have the assault on the Mississippi River and taking control of that. Later on, Ulysses S. Grant and General Sherman launched an attack through Tennessee. Now, before we get into all that, let's go back over here. So, if you look right here, here is the city of Richmond. Here is the city of Washington, D.C. If you look at the scale, basically Richmond is only maybe like 90 to 100 miles away from Washington, but yet Richmond was one of the last places to fall in the American Civil War. It took forever for them to march that 100 miles from Washington to Richmond. Now, why is that? Well, the Confederates put their best general in command of all of the armies of Northern Virginia, and that man is Robert E. Lee. General Lee was in command of all of the Confederate forces on this side. So that's one big reason. Another big reason why the Union Army was not able to force a quick victory was because they were just too cautious. I talked about this last time. They were too cautious. As soon as they made gains, they were too slow to take advantage of them. Like right up here in the Battle of Antietam, you have. Oh, my drawing controls aren't working. Oh well. So General George B. McClellan was in command of the Union forces. He attacked Lee near Antietam Creek. Eventually, the Union forces won. Awesome. So Lee basically and his army retreated. Now, when they retreated, George McClellan said he just basically let him go. Essentially, he was afraid that if he charged after them, they would then turn the tables on the Union army. So he had his reasons for holding back, but because he did not pursue, he lost his opportunity to smash the rebel army. So the Confederate army lived to fight another day, and fight they did. All of these battles went on in and around the first year and a half. And it was after this failure to follow up on his victory that George McClellan was basically ousted and another general was put into place. Now, as we look through this, another reason that the war lasted longer than either side wanted is because as soon as the Confederates realized that the Union was not going to be just a total pushover, despite that the fact that the Confederates were winning, they just could not force the issue. But also, they were playing a defensive war, and they were basically waiting for Europe to come in on their side. They were waiting for France, England, and Spain to come in on the the Confederate side, because they wanted that Confederate cotton. I'll talk about that in just a bit. See you next time.